Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special live review here. Wicked. We've both seen it. It's been one of our most anticipated films of the award season. For one of us, I think more so than the other. And
Hmm.
it's taken, I wonder who, it's taken quite the path here in terms of reviews and awards hype. So I know some Grande fans will probably be watching this afterwards. So I want to start out on a positive note so they don't immediately dislike the video. So Anthony, what were your initial thoughts on Wicked?
Well, yes. So I think I've seen the movie twice now, and leaving my second viewing last night, there's so many scenes that just grabbed my heart. But the one that I go back to and I keep thinking about is the dancing through life scene. The big sequence. We'll talk about how they kind of structure a lot of these musical sequences. But it's the moment when Glinda and Elphaba share a dance, and in that scene, both times I've seen it now, I stop watching the movie and I start seeing my life kind of reflect back at me. And it's up there on the screen. And it was just this wonderful clarifying moment where I just realized like that's what movies should be. It's when, the movie kind of disappears and you just start connecting with it beyond the confines of the movie screen, and you're able to see your own life and redefine who you are. And when a movie is able to do that, I just think it's really special, and I think that's what every movie should do. And so, yeah, I love this movie. I've had an intimate relationship with this musical, since I was 8 years old. And I think that this is such a beautiful adaptation of this first half. And I just think this. I'm very happy. As the second act will tell you, I couldn't be happier. And that's how I feel about this movie. And I can't wait to talk all about it. I have no idea what Jack thinks because he has not told me.
Hmm.
So
I've not
let's
shared
see.
with anyone. Yes. So, hello also to everyone joining. If you have any questions, feel free to throw it out. Sorry, Ayush. Yeah, Wicked. One thing, I have not seen the Broadway musical. I didn't know the story. I had no familiarity with it at all. Besides, I think I knew the Defying Gravity song. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
That's something.
Oh, and this is a non-spoiler review. We should be from the top.
Non-spoiler review. Yes, yeah, for
There's a
sure.
lot to spoil for
There-
people who've seen the musical and not. I was surprised.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think I'm I don't want to be super. I just think it's fine, honestly. I think the hype leading into it was like super hyperbolic in terms of my opinion and what it ended up being in the end. I think it was fun. There are a lot of issues with it, but the songs are catchy, the musical sequence are well choreographed. The two lead performances I think are what really carry the film with Grande and Erivo. I think they work wonders in terms of making this material work, and they have both that like huge musical presence to them, but they have that they had good like intimate performances when the camera is close. So they handle that balance between a cinematic and theatrical performance very well. The pacing I don't think is perfect in the film. Uh, Especially the second half, I feel like you can really feel the fact that a 2 hour and 45 minute play was stretched into two halves, and the first half is 2 hours and 40 minutes. So I think the pacing wasn't the best part for me. I also think the storytelling and themes were a little heavy-handed and just kind of like throwing that out there, just like very on the surface. Technically, is probably where I run into like maybe the most issues with it. I just think you can see that there was incredible work done in the crafts on things with the production design and the costume design. It's all very elaborate and beautiful. But it's like I feared in the trailers, the color grading, the backlighting, and all that just makes it look very overexposed and bland. And I think it hurts the amazing work that was done by those craft people. Um, and I don't like how when I'm in the middle of a good like musical scene, there are moments where I'm like taken out because I'm like, why does it look that way? I just think it could have been lit and color graded a little bit better. But yeah, I mean the performances are good. The story fine. I had a good time watching it, but I don't think it was like as epic and groundbreaking as I think I would have maybe expected based off of the initial reactions.
Yeah, I mean, of course, by the end of this review, we would be um, we would not be doing our full service if we didn't talk about the Oscar and awards campaign for the movie. So we'll get to that and we'll talk about the reactions. I think there's two camps with that. I think you have the people like me who love the show, worship it as holy gospel, and therefore are so pleased with such a faithful and loving adaptation. I also just think in the context of what has been made, we've been talking about this in the anticipation of this. The idea of having a big budget, spectacle musical that's going to, we assume, is going to be this big box office hit. These movies just don't come around too often. They definitely don't come around too often, not in the animated form. And so I do think there's a refreshing quality to this movie that I think people are responding to. And I just think in the current climate that we're in, we can talk about some of the themes. I found the themes to be, in some cases, actually very subtle. I thought what John M. Chu was doing was kind of laying the groundwork in a way where you didn't really know until it hits you at the end, like what he was setting up, which I was very impressed with. But I think just right now, this idea that nobody can claim your story. You decide your own path. You have to accept yourself, and that's all that matters. I think that is a very prescient theme right now in the face of so many political oppositions and just people just feeling like they're not understood across the globe, across the political spectrum. I think we can just say that people are not understood in a way that they are satisfied with. I think the story taps into that. That would be my sense of why this movie is, I think, hitting the culture at the right time and why it's getting this success. And also just compared to the other movies, like what's the last movie you could compare this to as far as what this is reaching? Because even you can say movies like Beauty and the Beast 2017, which was a wedding cake musical, but this is different because I think it is more distinct, and I think this is a new story for a lot of people. Despite how much I've seen the show and love the show, it's Broadway and theater is still a very small avenue. So I think people are just falling in love with something that echoes back to what they love about American movies. And this is what I was really impressed with, is that I think this blurs all of Hollywood's greatest strengths as a way of telling stories. It has the grandeur, it has the wonder, it has the scale of classic movies, especially classic movie musicals. I was taken back to Sound of Music. I feel like there is a very clear homage to the Sound of Music in Cynthia Erivo's first big number. And I thought it was fitting. And it helps that you also have one of the most talented people on the planet, but goosebumps with that scene. My Fair Lady was another one, as far as the grand architecture of a lot of these locations. There's one shot in One Short Day, which is the song When We Go to the Emerald City. And it's a one take that was so impressive because John M. Chu just keeps going further and further into this set. And I feel like in any other place you would have a big room and you would kind of go in a circle. But no, he's going further and further as if the street is just never ending. And certain shots like that are so freeing. And we don't see a lot in sort of musicals anymore. This feels like, something from the yesteryear. Even Chicago treated its musical numbers as if you are on a stage. And, the Cell Block Tango could very well be replicated on the Broadway stage. And that's not how he shoots these scenes. That we're always pushing the boundaries of where the production design will take us. And I really like that. And that we luxuriate in every single detail and specificity. So yeah, that all worked for me. I will agree, at some points, I do find the lighting to be a little bit under my expectations.
Yes.
My question, though, I was just wondering this, is that, the movie is PG. I think the book is rated R. There's some stuff in the book in the first 10 pages that is very mature, very, biting off fingers, it's crazy. And obviously the musical was not that. They definitely, Stephen Schwartz and his brilliance found a way to make this very broad and very popular. But I wonder if they made certain choices with the lighting to try and keep it a little bit lighter and brighter so that kids could maybe get into it. Because I would imagine maybe that's an awareness. Again, that's not defending then certain choices with the coloring. But I also think that when it needs to work, coloring wise, it works. There's a great shot of Ariana Grande at the end of Popular, just flowing her arms in the air, and the pink lighting comes in, and it when it needs to work visually, I do think it works. Defying gravity, all of that, her in the sky flying, it completely works for me. So while I agree with you, it's a quibble. It's probably my biggest quibble. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't distract me from loving the movie in its totality.
Yeah. Let's talk about those lead two performances.
Oh yes.
Cynthia Erivo as what's her name?
Elphaba, which is L. Frank Baum wrote the original Wizard of Oz
Oh,
story. Elphaba.
a nice little touch.
Yeah.
She's great in this. I was honestly a little shocked because all those early reactions were Ariana Grande, rightfully so. We'll get to her in a second, but she obviously, I think Ariana Grande has the more bigger comedic, more theatrical, like theater
She definitely
kind
has
of
the bigger
performance.
comedic performance.
For sure, definitely the comedic performance. But I found what Erivo did here was really good. Obviously, she's a great singer, we know that, and she's a great actress, and she really delivers all of the different emotions the character goes through. I I mainly connect through films through the characters and emotion and like the acting and performances. So that's why this still overall works for me, and I still have a good time with it. Is these two lead performances? I think they nail the emotion, and I connected really connected, especially her whole journey here. Um, yeah, so I think, and she also has she wasn't like huge about it. I think
Yeah.
some theatrical performances can be very big, but this felt very, for the screen.
Dear Evan
Very,
Hansen, excuse me.
yeah. God. I forgot about that film. Why'd you bring it up? That was back in my
I'll
mind.
never forget it, unfortunately.
Yeah, but yeah, she does a great job. I think she really carries the film. I mean, both of them do, but she's, I think, the more emotional anchor of the film, in my opinion. And I
Yeah.
thought great.
Yeah, when the movie ended, for my first watch, I immediately was like just blown away by Ariana Grande, because I think, to me, and you get more in the second act as well, which we'll get next year. Glinda is just such a fascinating character as far as how she maneuvers around all of the characters.
She's almost the
Um,
perspective with the narration and stuff of the film
yeah,
in a way.
she definitely sets up the framework. And there's a clever lighting detail in the show. In the first act, when it ends with Elphaba flying high, defying gravity, there's a
Mhm.
blackout, but there's a second longer spotlight on Elphaba. And the same thing happens
Oh,
for the second act, but Glinda's in her bubble, and there's a second longer spotlight on Glinda, which is also, again, one of the reasons why I always defended the split, because to me, there was almost a very clear acknowledgement of who the story belongs to in the different acts, and just that they have different like rhythms and everything. And I also think that this, as I was always telling people, this is not a spoiler. She's the Wicked Witch by the end of it. This
yes.
tell if the story
There,
if the story is
well,
about how the Wicked Witch became
yeah.
wicked, this is a satisfying arc in this one
There
story.
in this film where it was almost like that Han Solo movie where it's like how we get the name, where it's like, oh, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So but the more I've sat with the movie, I've just really been blown away by Cynthia Erivo. I agree with you. It is
Mhm.
I think there's a clear acknowledgement that they're playing into the fact that this is a racial allegory in this fantastical world.
Yeah.
And keying into Cynthia Erivo being black, being a black actress, and there are certain lines that are added into this version that I think are to acknowledge that. Bowen Yang's improvised line of "I don't see color," which is just sets the tone so well off the bat. And I think the scene when she is named the Wicked Witch, we won't say how or the context, but the way that she plays it, it's not this sort of shocking moment. She plays it as like, yeah, this is what I've always expected, because I've never really given the world a chance to know me, because I knew that this is what they were capable of. And that awareness I found to be just so devastating, and only fuels then the emotional peaks of her performance. She is so astute as a performer. Yet she manages to also, like, we can talk about this. I mean, these actresses are not college age, but I always bought them in this scenario because I think they do have this youthful energy to them that makes me believe that these are people at the start of their lives. These aren't people that are now well-established veterans of any industry.
Mhm.
So I also give them, both of them, especially Erivo, credit for taking us on that journey. Yeah, we can talk about more about her awards chances later. But yeah,
We can.
I was blown away from the minute, because again, I've known these songs. I've heard so many people do these interpretations. She's up there. She might be my favorite interpretation of like The Wizard and I. Like that, the power, and it's the power of that song. It's the benefit of certain directorial choices, like her like flying Superman style, running, and then jumping. And then like there's a moment breath that is added into this version of the song right before the final note, which is not in the Broadway, which I thought was perfect, with a little rainbow in the distance, just to pay an homage to, of course, why we're all here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought she just constantly just beautiful and humane and soulful and defying gravity, it done right, is one of the most iconic, memorable movie songs. It had the potential to be if it was done right, and it was just
Mhm.
constantly
Yeah.
just flying around. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is,
Yeah,
but she definitely carries it with she
yeah,
has a that's a good. I think most people know that's towards the end of the film, kind of the note that you end on. And
yeah.
I think the film, especially in the second act, carries up a little more steam. I think it ends on a high note, which is very helpful. It's always good to end a film on a high note.
I can't remember the last time that I felt a sort of rush right when the movie cut to black. Like it was like through the last it reminded me a lot of like Damien Chazelle movies where like, Whiplash ends with that big drum sequence, La La Land of course ends with the epilogue. You know,
Yeah.
he kind of like destroys the idea of a denouement. He's just like, we're going to end on the highest peak, and this movie definitely does that. And I just every time it ends I just feel so exhilarated. I also think this is a good moment because I think it speaks to all the performers' ability. I really like how they did the musical sequences. We talked a lot about Joker and a lot of like bad movie musicals
Yeah.
where like they're just rushing through the songs to get through them. It doesn't feel like they're enjoying the songs. These almost get looked at as if they're like action sequences. They're like 10. There are 4 songs in this movie that I think are like 10 minutes long. No One Mourns the Wicked, the opening,
Hmm.
Dancing Through Life, One Short Day, and Defying Gravity, where there are like mini scenes in between. There's so many emotional arcs. If you took them out, you'd miss huge chunks of plot development. And I think it speaks to the performer's ability that even though in Defying Gravity, there are like mini scenes happening throughout with dialogue and with action, anytime that she goes back into singing, it works and it's consistent. And it keeps giving more and more layers and depth to what they're singing about. And it really worked for me instead of just like stopping to sing a pop song. Like all of these things are so emotionally moving, and that's what I think was the key. Every single scene is like we're adding more emotion, we're adding more clarity and depth, and giving the actors more space to connect with us. So I was a big fan. I'm
Yeah.
interested as far as you not knowing the songs, like because this do you feel that this is a different way of doing musical sequences?
Um, it didn't feel too different to me watching it. No, I thought the musical sequences were the best part of the film, in my opinion. I think, as Britt mentions, he
Yeah,
did great music in the height too. They were the highlight of the film to me. I think when the musical sequence were always the height, and there were sometimes moments where I felt it slowed down a little, and then a musical sequence would pick it back up. So I thought it worked very well. I also do want to point out, Cynthia Erivo is great in everything she's been in. I mean, she was great in Widows, and I'm happy to see her have this leading actress moment in
yeah.
this huge.
I was blessed enough to see her final performance in The Color Purple
Mhm.
on Broadway. And I got to tell her that when I went to my Wicked screening
Oh yeah,
last week, and she was just wonderful. And so I don't know, I was melting, and I mean that pun intended. I just could not believe
yeah.
it. And I got to tell her how much she was brilliant in the movie. And I'm very happy for her because there are certain I was watching the Last Culturistas podcast, and Matt Rogers was saying like it's so great talking about Ariana Grande to see somebody who was born to do something actually get to do it. And I feel that way about both of them in this performance. That's what I think is so special is that like these people not only deserve this opportunity, but like that these are performances that they're going to be talked about. It reminds me of like what it must have felt like to watch like Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. Like you just know this is your like log line for the rest of your life. Wicked star Cynthia Erivo, and that's really exciting. The last thing I want to say before we move off of Cynthia is that to me, this movie, what I find so profound and poignant about it is that I think it is one of the best examples of understanding what it means to be an other and what it means how to see yourself as an other. As somebody who made a short film where one of the characters is called the other, obviously this is a topic that I respond to quite greatly. And I think that they should talk about how like it's not that everybody else sees you as another, it's that you start to believe everybody else and that you see another within you. And I'll end on the childhood stuff later, but I just think that too, like to me, that's the emotional underpinning is like when you allow other people to define who you are and keep you close to the ground.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, moving on to the talk of the film, it seems to be. Is it Glinda or Galinda? I still don't
So
know that.
she's born Galinda, but then she
Okay,
changes her name to Glinda. So technically, at the start of the movie, she's Glinda, but then we go
okay,
back and she's Galinda until the end of the
okay.
movie.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Either or, it's fine.
It sounds similar enough, so it's fine. She's great in the film. I think she's the biggest surprise for lots of people. Some of us have seen her act before on Nickelodeon, and she was also very fun. that show.
She's a Broadway
Victoria,
alum. We
she's
forget
been on
that.
Broadway. Yeah, yeah. Most people know her as a pop star, so I think she'll be the big surprise here. She's just great. She's definitely the most theatrical performance. She's hilarious. She just brings a life to the film. And she just has such a screen presence about her that whenever she's on screen, the becomes more alive. But even though she's obviously very funny, she's got a great voice. We know that already. She nails the songs like popular. There was like discourse that she's not singing popular. She said she nailed it in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
Um, but she also, even though she has these comedic and more theatrical, funny moments, she also in those more intimate moments, especially towards the end, really nails the more emotional moments. So she was phenomenal. I get the hype. I don't know about like Oscar winning hype, but I get the hype about her being
yeah.
great. And
Well,
for
we'll
sure.
talk about that at the end of the show. So
We
much
will.
to talk about at the end of the show. I want to just respond to the first thing about her being her own Glinda. Totally. There are certain, I won't spoil them again. It's so hard. I want to talk about this movie so much.
Yeah. I don't know.
There are certain vocal riffs that are Ariana Grande. Like it's just, you can
Okay.
hear them. And even the one that they released in the lyric video when she does the, oh my God, I'm going to have to think of it on the top.
A lot.
She does like instead of she just goes up and she goes ba ba da ba da da well R and like
Okay.
that's her. So she does find ways to keep it. But I also think, listen, this is a very tough role. I mean, this is as she
Mhm.
talks about like it's there's she had to like basically train how to like almost sing opera in a way. Like that's how high, and she even takes it higher. Like the last note of "No One Mourns the Wicked," she takes higher than any Glinda I've ever heard.
Oh, nice.
So I definitely think that she's putting her own stamp on this. I find the comedy that she is asked to do is a very different style of comedy from what Kristen Chenoweth and the Glindas on stage have had to do, because comedy to a camera is very different than comedy to an
It
audience.
is.
So I
Yeah.
think just tonally, she feels very distinct. Now, she does remind me of some of my favorite Glindas. She reminds me of Kristen Chenoweth. She reminds me of Ali Mozzie, who I love and did a very, like, sort of like more muscular, like she's just every bone in her body, every muscle was part of Popular. And that's why I loved
Yeah.
Ali Mozzie's performance. And so like you definitely see that when she's like on the floor, just like dancing her ass off.
Yeah.
But no, I think that what I think speaks to the strength of her performance, and this was when I knew the movie was going to work, and I was like, I had no worries, is that knowing what we know, even at the end of this movie, Glinda and Elphaba obviously have a very intimate, close relationship with each other. And the opening song is Glinda being surrounded by people saying, "No one mourns the wicked. Ha ha, the Wicked Witch is dead." Um,
Mhm.
and her performance in that song, as she plays the incongruity of being somebody who's supposed to represent goodness to the world, and yet not wanting to partake in that goodness, was so moving to me. Especially as she approached that flaming witch scarecrow sort of contraption they had, which I thought was just a beautiful, again, setting up the scale of what we were about to see. And she was approaching it as it's a big word. It's like anempathetic sound, I think is how you say it. But like it
That is
sound
a big
like
word.
meaning. It's like when sound and meaning kind of like are like clashing against each other. So like she's singing like goodness knows, as you can clearly see that she is not feeling good at all. And that's what I knew. Like this is a mature performance from somebody who wants to be taken seriously, put in the work. She nails the comedy. In my out of the theater reaction, I compared her to Barbara Streisand and Lucille Ball, and that I really think she stands among both of those ladies in the musical and the comedy, respectively. You know, so yeah, I
Yeah.
loved her. I loved her. And this movie doesn't work if they both aren't at peak level. They both have
And
to
then,
be extraordinary.
yeah, yeah. I agree. But I'm an easy crier, so I did cry during this film. I don't know if you did, but
Oh yeah, no, I was able to keep it together.
okay,
No, the
I don't know your
scene,
crying level. Like I
the
cry Shazam too, so I'm an easy crier. So it's not.
I don't think I'm an easy crier, but like the dancing through life scene, oh yeah, that's Bing Bong
Okay.
levels. I think that there are so
Bing bong.
far
That's
3 movies, and I think this is gonna be the fourth where I will cry every time I've watched it. Then it's Inside Out, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part Two, and E.T. Every time, no matter how many times, I will always cry. And I think Wicked might be the fourth because it should
Mhm.
that. Oh God, I can't. Even Defying Gravity, we'll get to at the
We
end. I got
yes,
to
we
pace myself a little bit.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, these are the two standout performances. Obviously, there's other great. I mean, Jonathan Bailey, I think, is the third biggest standout. I wish he had a bigger role, but he's just extremely charismatic. This is obviously the biggest role. I think a lot of people will be exposed to him through this film, and I think this will hopefully, along with I think he's in Jurassic World next year,
yeah.
make him Or
What
he
a
just
weird collection.
but he has that movie star charisma that I see him just becoming huge from this. And I mean, just look at him. He looks like a prince. He's extremely charming. So he's I wish he had a bigger role, but that dancing, that's the one he does right with Ariana.
Dancing Through Life. Yeah, yeah.
That's one of the best moments. So
Yeah.
he's great.
He's a part two payoff, I think, in many ways.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So he'll come back. As are a lot of the, like, her sister. That's what I think,
Mhm.
again, like, how these characters operate in the second act is so different than how they operate in the first act. So like I'm like, this is like the school years, and then we get to the Wizard of Oz. So yeah, I also want to say that I think Jeff Goldblum, for what that character represents, I think he does a great job of just catching you really up quick with what he is supposed to represent thematically.
Mhm.
You know, we won't get too much into it because it constitutes as a spoiler, but
Yeah.
I think for a show that kind of talks about basically how an autocracy kind of comes about, or the rule of one. I think he underscores what type of individual would likely rise through that power structure. And I do like that the movie kind of makes a point that, like, nihilism does lead to autocracy. It does lead to giving all your power away to one all-powerful person who doesn't need to prove it, as long as they keep making you think that they are all-powerful. You know, the running refrain in Dancing Through Life is Jonathan Bailey singing, "Nothing matters, but knowing nothing matters is just life. So keep dancing through." It's like, don't pay attention. Life is fraughtless when you're thoughtless. Just turn off your brain.
Yeah.
And so I like how they make these things, like those little ideas, those little perspectives do end up creating, wickedness in many forms. So I really like that. I also think Michelle Yeoh, she
She was
brings this
underused, I felt like.
little
Maybe she'll
underused.
get more in
Well,
the second, but
she
I don't
does
know.
have more fun stuff to do in the second, but I kind of like, she's just this presence. She comes, because I mean, I know a lot of people are looking at this and comparing it to like Harry Potter. She has as much to do as, like, Alan Rickman did as Snape in those
Yeah.
first Harry Potter movies. She's a presence in the background. She has this foreboding nature. She gets one really cool shot when she turns
does.
around and faces the camera.
That's a
So I
cool
think
shot.
like, it's the great, you look at Michelle Yeoh and you're like, come on, give her more to do. But like, she does as much as she needs to do for you to feel the impact of her character, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
She's a great
And
supporting presence.
I think Anthony thinks it's really good. I think it's fine. So that's where we end on it. And I just also, before we get into Oscars and all that stuff, I wanted to point out, look at all this production design. Such good work.
It's so good.
Oscar from, I believe his name is Nathan Crowley,
Yeah.
like 5, never won. And then look at the lighting, guys.
Also, these are compressed stills. I will grant you that I think that they look better on the screen, as everything looks better on the screen. And again, I've conceded that in some places, they don't look as,
look at
vibrant
the photo.
as
Why
you
is it
would
not?
want. Well, I mean, listen, I think that it's not the huge thing that I think people are jumping on, but it's an element, and I will grant you that. But this shot in particular, because I was like, the sunlight kept glaring. It's like, can I see?
I know
the
backlighting is just, they needed to keep actors' faces. Come on, guys, get some key lights in there.
Yeah, get some key lights. So yeah, I will, again. I grant, one of the things I do not think it's getting nominated for is best cinematography. So I will grant you that. But I do think that visually there are, like, the visuals in the end, like, if I pull the stills out and I pull, especially how the camera moves, that's the thing we forget about with cinematography. We only care about, like, the individual frames. Like, no, they have to move. And I think the way they move in many key scenes is inspired. And so I think in the end, I am a fan of the look of the movie. Yeah, just a couple of things. I do like the emphasis on, like, objects and how we associate certain identities and experiences in objects. Of course, popular, they get a lot of mileage out of Glinda's, all her little beauty things, and how that informs her feeling. Like, she feels popular because of the objects that she buys rather than, like, what she looks inside. I think that's a great, especially for a story all about, like, the physical manifestation and how we respond to a green girl. I thought that was great. I brought up in the reaction short when I came out of the theater is that I think Chu does a great job with shadows and reflections. They're both images of a person. but one of them is kind of obscured and more dark, and the other one is, you know, an actual reflection of somebody's true self. And that leads to what I think is the emotional peak, the climax of the movie, which is not in the musical. I'll just, again, without spoilers, it happens when Elphaba jumps through the glass, which we've seen so many times in the trailer. But that the moment that follows that is not in the musical, and that what it is a callback to from the beginning of the movie is not in the musical, and that's also really exciting because it means that this thing had its own kind of DNA separate from the show. But it brings me to this kind of my final point with this, which is also it links to Ariana Grande choosing to be credited as Ariana Grande Butera, which is her full name. It's her father's name. And she said that, you know, that was my name when I first saw Wicked when I was a kid. And I wanted to kind of restore, you know, this is a tribute to little Ari. And between that idea that she said and that beat that I'm talking about obliquely, when she jumps out of the window, I just feel like this, I feel like this movie ultimately is about rescuing the inner child. And I think for a lot of people, especially a lot of queer people who this story is always related to, there's this idea of like looking down on that child self because that child self was othered and you want to run away from the child. And I feel like what this movie understands is that you gotta tell the child to come with you. And for a movie that is kind of harkening back to our childhood selves, you know, I feel like a lot of people have a connection to The Wizard of Oz because, you know, that they obviously got when they were younger. I just think that this is rescuing that inner child within us. And I think it's a beautiful encapsulation of that. And I think it's a pretty poignant way of looking at self-worth, is that you have to love who you were at the start of your journey before you can continue it. And so, yeah, I just think that this really worked for me. I think it captures the themes of the musical really well. I think it adds new elements for the movie that works in really riveting fashion. I have so many people in my life who I'm going to see this with over the next couple of days.
You've already seen it, what, 3 times?
I've seen it twice. And by next week, and I all of these times are with different people in my life. It's crazy. I have my whole like drama club. We're going like 15 people next week.
Oh,
so
wow.
it is. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know why I do this to myself and have to organize all these trips. But I enjoy it. But like my family's going. I made my own Wicked movie when I was 13. I'm going with my aunt who played Elphaba when I made it. God, that's such an watchable masterpiece. So like, I'll definitely be, you know, thinking about this movie and revisiting it for time and time again. But right now, at the beginning of its run, I can just say that, again, I couldn't be happier. And I'm very, very happy that this movie exists.
Yeah, I think those are not going to make any barf. I think those are very good final thoughts to end on. I'm not going to make my final. Like, the story feels a little inflated, but also truncated. Like, we'll end it on your to Oscars. So what I right now, this is interesting. So I've got two separate tiers here. I do think it'll be in Best Picture. I don't think it'll be on, like, some people like a top tier like win contender. I'm not sure where you stand on that. We can get there in a second, but I mean the reviews have released. It's got a good I think Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a Metacritic. I just think it's going to be received iffily. I think it'll get picture. Supporting actress is clearly in there. I mean, Ariana Grande has like Disney princess levels of like charm. So definitely get in there. Costume design, production design are the two technical standouts, and sound, it's a musical. So I think it has to get like a few tech noms and one above the line nom for it to get into picture, I think. And it's got the above the line nom with Grande. I don't think it'll get director or screenplay because it's a musical. It's not the kind of thing the director's branch goes for, and musicals don't get screenplay. And I think if you don't get nominated in directing or screenplay, you don't really stand a shot at winning at all. So I think it's going to be definitely probably in picture. I do still think there's a world if it continues to get like if the reception continues to be down from the initial reaction, that like I think the initial reactions honestly didn't help it with the level of hyperbole and like people like the level of which people praised it. But honestly, I just think
it's always a question as far as like I feel like it needed that first level of enthusiasm to consider it as a serious contender. but like, did it go too far? Like, it's, it's the La La Land plague as far as when a movie peaks, how,
Yeah.
it's interesting. I will say real quick, and then we can go back to you, just as
Yeah.
I do think the thing with La La Land and the thing with a lot of these movies that like come out of the gate so strong is that the thing that hurt La La Land is that at its core it was this intimate little independent movie, and so people saying like myself, it's my favorite movie of all time, that
Yeah.
it's fantastic, crazy, exuberant, joyous cinematic experience. For people who came to it late, they were like, yeah, it's a little movie, it's nice, it's fun, it's good, but it's not like greatest
Hmm.
of all time. Wicked at least has the scale of something that could wear that in a way that Oppenheimer did. Like if people told you Oppenheimer was fantastic and then you watched it, you could understand because of the scope of that movie, and it felt big, which I think Wicked has the grandness of Best Picture contenders, which I think is something it has going for it that I don't think other musicals of late have had. That's my state on
That's
that.
fair. Yeah. I still think, in my opinion, my feelings about the film, and honestly, my feelings about it in the awards race, are pretty similar in comparing it to Barbie. 'Cause I think Barbie was a little also like heavy-handed in its themes, but I just think it'll be a huge box office hit that I think they'll want to showcase for sure at the Academy Awards to make sure they get enough attention. They'll probably, there's no original
Yes, can we applaud that? Yeah, there's no original song. There's like little extra bits of music here and there.
Oh, yeah,
I won't say what because it'll be a spoiler.
I have no clue.
Um,
So
but if you've seen the movie, I think you can imagine what was written for the movie. Is
yeah,
what I'll
yeah,
say.
that's true. That's fair. But yeah, I think it'll get in, but I don't think it really is contending. It can it can win. I think it'll win costume design. I'm iffy about production design, and I think that's what do you have it getting right now? That's pretty much
Okay, so um, first let's just do the easy things. Costume design, production design. Give them the Oscars now. I think that both are kind of surefire bets. I'd be shocked if they didn't win both of them. I also
yeah.
think because they're coming from esteemed veterans of the industry. Paul Tazewell did the costumes for Hamilton on Broadway. He did West Side
Mhm.
Story for Steven Spielberg. So like he's been well established. Nathan Crowley is Christopher Nolan's longtime production designer. I think both of them check done. It already
Yeah.
has two. I think this is and to go back to the picture comments. I agree with I obviously agree with what I just said. That I think the
Yeah.
grandness of the movie helps it. I think that oftentimes maybe that movies that are too small, unless they have a huge heart, like Coda, it's hard for people to think that it has the gravitas to win Best Picture. And I do think the gravitas is needed. Everything Everywhere had this incredible independent spirit, but there was an impact to that movie. It was of other worlds, and the fact that it was in this one location. Like there was I still think there was a gravitas to Everything Everywhere All at Once, despite its indie credibility. And I think Wicked has that. I also think we have to acknowledge the current place we're in. We've talked about this also, is like, how will the Academy and the world be responding to the current political landscape? I said it on an earlier episode that I think a movie that has the line, the only way to bring people together is to give them a real good enemy. I think that's a line that really impacts people at this current point in time. Which is why I also think that, like Top Gun Maverick, like Dune, I wouldn't be surprised if it was able to get into Best Adapted Screenplay. Also, because this movie is long, there are a lot of dialogue scenes. This isn't just a
It's a
straight
musical.
musical, too. And honestly, and this is what we have to talk about, the greatest thing this movie has going for it is the loss of momentum. That if the loss of momentum of Amelia Perez, if Amelia Perez continues to drift
It's
a
better than
little,
that.
yeah, if it tends to drift a little bit more down, and I don't think the Netflix release is helping it because it won't have this sort of box office phenomenon that Wicked will have, then I think that this helps because, Amelia Perez could now not get into adapted screenplay, and then Wicked comes in.
Yeah.
Like
I
that's a
just
possibility.
When you look at the musicals that the Academy takes seriously, though, I do think Amelia Perez seems more on like the what Les Miserables, the Chicago, more like less fantastical, more like gritty feeling kind of musical compared
Yeah.
to, I guess La La Land is maybe a more fantastical kind of musical, but I still don't think it's quite as fantastical as this film. I think they tend to lean more
Yeah. I mean, honestly,
gritty.
like the part of the thing with this is that I really just don't know what modern musical you can compare this to as far as having the ability to cross both camps. Like, this isn't Beauty and the Beast 2017. And that would, I think, aesthetically be the movie that you could compare it the most to.
Yeah,
It also, starring Emma Watson.
better than that
Also,
movie.
it has a closeness in my heart, obviously. But like, I just don't
Yes.
know what you can compare. I think that I would say this is close. If you're looking at those two movies, if you're looking at Beauty and the Beast, which is this very popular wedding cake, extravagant musical, and then you're looking at Chicago, which is this adaptation of a Broadway musical that has, serious bona fides to it. I would
Mhm.
put it closer to Chicago than Beauty and the Beast, because I do think there's more respect out of the gate for this movie than there was for Beauty and the Beast. Like, Beauty and the Beast was in the mid
Yeah,
70s on Rotten Tomatoes. No,
it's a
I think it
live
was
remake
I think it was
too.
mid 70s and then low 70s by now. It might even be like 69 by now on Rotten Tomatoes. This is
Mhm.
like debuted in the high 90s. Will it probably drop to the high 80s by the end of it? Yes, because
Probably.
everybody and their mothers have Rotten Tomatoes accounts now.
Yeah, they
Um,
do.
and also, I would I think the Barbie comp is fair, but Barbie at its core is a studio comedy, and that's not what this is. This is, I think, a little bit, again, has higher aspirations, and I do think the
But it's just
connection to
a film.
yeah, I grant you that, but I think that what ended up hurting Barbie more than anything else wasn't the feminism. It was that it was, a flimsy, summer comedy, that, shared in common stuff with like Bridesmaids, because we talked about like Ryan Gosling was like the Melissa McCarthy of that year, and
Mhm.
that's where, like, Wicked, the fact that I think you could have a conversation about how this continues the legacy of the Wizard of Oz and not be laughed out of the room says something, because that might be the most iconic American movie of all
Yeah,
time. So that's my thing with Picture. Right now, I think it is high up there, just because I just don't know what other movie is going to have the passion to drive it forward. We talk about passion every year. Coda, Oppenheimer, Everything Everywhere. These were movies with incredible amounts of passion that managed to convince people that their qualms were not enough to vote against it. And given how this review went and the fact that you didn't, you let me have the final word, maybe that's proof that that's what's going to happen.
maybe. I just
Um,
don't think they're gonna take it seriously enough. They'll take it
they,
seriously
that's true. They might. I think Conclave is honestly the big movie to look
in
out
this
for.
film. Maybe, but I do think this is still like considered like blockbuster franchise film, and they don't really go
Mhm.
for so.
Yeah, I'm really interested, because I do think if this does very well, let's say it wins Best Picture, I think we're going to be looking at a different Academy where Oppenheimer and Wicked, two movies that I'm going to assume are knocking on the door of $1 billion, are these big hits within the Academy. Like, it'll be a very interesting world. We've already said ourselves that we think the term Oscar bait belongs to
It's
yesteryear.
pretty much gone. Yeah,
Um, and so I think also when you look at like the last 3 years, could you get three different Best Picture contenders between Coda, Everything Everywhere, and Oppenheimer? They're so different from each other, but they're also so different from year to year that, like, Wicked does feel like the pendulum swing in the other direction if Oppenheimer was the type of movie they wanted to award last year, and now we're going in a different direction. I just think the other movies, honestly, like Amelia Perez, Nora, The Brutalist, they just feel too small right now. I want to see their momentum build. I think the biggest competitor right now is Conclave, because it did do good box office. It had a great box office performance. I think it will have cross guild support. But yeah, I see a
it's
world
very middle.
where,
It
yeah,
appeals.
but yeah, I see a world where the producers get behind Wicked, the actors get behind Wicked, the craftspeople get behind Wicked. It has the box office, and it has, the legacy of the Wizard of Oz all helping it. That I think it would behoove people to take it a little bit more seriously than maybe even I was. I was not in this camp. People know. Go back. I was
Yeah.
looking forward to the movie, but I was not thinking it was going to be this all around player. And I do think it has a fighter's chance. I want to talk about the actors though more
Yes.
clearly.
Yes. I think
Um,
someone asked what number Ariana would be right now. I'd have her
what?
at number.
Yeah,
Honestly, I don't think she's gonna win. I think she's kind of like maybe like Ryan Gosling for Barbie if we're gonna Barbie comparison where
interesting.
I I don't think especially I don't think supporting actress musical performances do well in terms of winning, but I think when you're up against Zoe Saldana, who I think is also giving a supporting actress she's a lead in the film too. I mean, they both are,
Well,
but
no. To be fair, and I grant you, Ariana Grande, she's on the bubble.
she is, yeah,
But Joey Saldana has the most screen time. She has
by
more
a
screen
lot.
time than
It's not even
Carlos
close.
Sofia Gasson. At least Cynthia
Yeah,
Erivo has more screen time.
yeah. Zoe Saldana is kind of insane for being in supporting actress, but that doesn't help her somehow. And I just think she's also the much more established person in the industry. I think this is like a welcome to Ariana Grande, not like a win moment. Whereas I think Zoe Saldana has been around for a while and it's more of like seen as more reasonable to give her the win now.
I take you back to 2021 when I could have made the same comment for Kirsten Dunst. And who did she lose to? Another Ariana DeBose in West Side Story.
Yeah, but
I'm
was
just saying.
Kristen Dunst like dancing on tables and singing and crying and like all
I
the
grant you, but Kirsten Dunst was in the most nominated movie that year, and she had been in the industry for what, 25 years? So just being around all the time
I
doesn't
know,
mean that, because like honestly, like I'm
but she can
honestly,
have the good in my
yeah, and
I love the performance, but that's
well,
not the performance that wins Oscars. Zoe
yeah,
Saldana.
I grant, and it's funny because we talk about like supporting actress tends to go for musicals, and we have two musicals, but I do
Yeah,
think, would you concede? I do think they're the top two. I at least feel. Because I don't
probably,
see a,
yeah.
do you really see
I'm
a world where
hanging on
Felicity
to
Jones, you
no.
know,
She
stages
has
a
the
comeback?
He's not contending for the win. And I think I'm hanging on to if Nickel Boys is a thing, Aunjanue Taylor is great in that film, and I could maybe see
Mhm.
if that gained momentum, her coming along. But that's just me being delusional right now. So I would agree they're the top two.
Yeah. I want to talk about Cynthia because frankly, I understand that like, there's a lot of people vying for this. And it's a competitive year. We saw with Margot Robbie last year that sometimes people who we think are surefire bets because the movie is a big player sometimes don't make it. This is my thing. All right. You have Nicole Kidman, you have Angelina Jolie. These are people who have won Oscars before, and they're going to be in
Mhm.
movies that are not in Best Picture contention, at least from what we can assess. And then you have a lot of newcomers. Carlos Sofia Gasson, Mikey Madison. These are people that are introducing themselves to the industry, similarly to Ariana Grande. And then you have
Mhm.
Cynthia Erivo, who, if she wins Best Actress, would be the youngest EGOT in
She's not
history.
going to win Best Actress.
Hang on. She's the youngest EGOT in history. She has proven herself as an Emmy, Grammy, and Tony winner. She is a previous Oscar nominee
She
for
is.
Best Actress, and she was also nominated for Best Song for Harriet. And if you just clip Defying Gravity, we always talk about the clip that gets you the win. To me, it like I would honestly be like, is Mikey Madison, as great as she is, like going to like steamroll for the like introduce herself, steamroll, win this
I
Oscar
don't
when you have
think so.
Cynthia Erivo, who's been around for at least, I mean, as far as in the cinematic world for since Widows, but people are aware of her theater cred, and I think to me like I don't. I just look at this lineup and I'm like, yeah, it would make sense that if you're just looking at the person, Cynthia Erivo would maybe benefit from winning an Oscar. Now, will she win it for Wicked? I don't know. But all I can tell is that if you clip out Wizard and I, you clip out Defying Gravity, you send that to Oscar voters, and then you tell them this is an Emmy, Grammy, and Tony Award winning actress. To me, that's if you told me that story, it makes sense. And I think the only thing that is holding her back right now is because it's Wicked.
Yeah. I just think Ariana Grande is going to take a lot of the attention away from her. And I don't know, for some reason, I just look at the other people in contention. I don't think Mikey Madison is going to sweep to a win. I don't know who's going to win right now. I honestly don't think it'll probably be Mikey Madison because I think Honora is losing some steam. But I could maybe just see being Angelina Jolie or Nicole Kidman. But those
But
names,
they're
I think.
not in Best Pictures. This is my thing: is that the movies
But
that are,
you can
I
Mark Best Picture, but
I grant you, but also Margot Robbie. I don't think it is that. I don't think people are not going to give Cynthia her flowers. I think, case in point, we led with Cynthia. I think the instant once people be like, oh, Ariana Grande is an actress, like once that you know is washes over us, I do think
yes.
they're going to be looked at in the same way that a lot of like two-hander performances are looked at, and that I don't see a world where people don't give Cynthia Erivo her flowers. I think also because that's the performance I think stays with you longer emotionally. I'm looking at the season. I tend to always go with, okay, who's the best picture contenders in the categories? That's how Black Panther was able to beat If Beale Street Could Talk for best original score. I know that's a weird anecdote. It's the first one that came to mind.
Yeah.
But you tend to just go for that. And so when I look at the two, heavy hitters, they're not going to be in best picture nominees, Maria and Baby Girl. And then you look at the other contenders who are not going to be in. I just think they're losing momentum. Carlos Sofia Gasson and Mikey Madison, and then Demi
They're both
Moore
they're both
also. Right now let me ask you this: what movies do you think are gaining momentum right now?
right now.
Yeah.
I think well definitely Wicked is gaining momentum right now,
Okay.
but right now is very different from January when they're voting
Yeah.
for Oscar for nomination. So I can't gauge who will have buzz at the right time by then. So right now I think Wicked's definitely momentum. I think Conclave. at the box office,
And I think Brutalist has the benefit of opening later. Like it hasn't opened yet. So
it'll gain more buzz then. Yeah.
Brady Corbett, I think, is looking really good right
Maria.
about now. So we'll see. Anyway, that's my feeling, is that I feel like there's a sentiment that because Ariana is coming on so strong, that kind of discounts Cynthia Erivo because they both can't win. But Oppenheimer won 2 acting awards last year. Everything Everywhere won 3. I get it.
This isn't winning 2. No,
I'm just saying.
People are going to take this film seriously.
People would have said that Jamie Lee Curtis was no way going to win an Oscar because they already had Ki-Wei Kwan. And okay, we've already made the case that this could be a Best Picture.
You've made the case. I'm 0%.
I'm just saying, I don't think you should discount Cynthia Erivo just because Ariana Grande is coming on strong. I think they are a two-hander, and I do think there's a world, because we also have to acknowledge this is a weaker year. We've said it before on the show. And so there are things that might happen this year that are not going to happen in other years. If Cynthia Erivo was going up against Emma Stone and Lily Gladstone, then no, I would not be as strong. But given the context of this year, yeah, I think she has a fighter's chance.
She's got a chance. Do you think that she could maybe, if Emilia Perez continues to lose buzz as the musical lead performance, I do think as a musical lead performance, Cynthia Erivo is more impressive, in my opinion, than Carla Sofia Gascon's performance. She could maybe get her out if that continues.
I mean, Golden Globe, I think somebody in our chat brought it up. I could see Wicked doing very well. I don't, the idea that Emilia Perez, why not?
I would put that or Mikey Madison before her.
Okay.
Demi Moore is a good at winning that Golden Globe, in my opinion.
That would be really cool if she did. And she's still in the mix here, and that would be somebody who like has been established for a long time. But to me, Moore won Best Actress. That'd be crazy.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. That's not showy of a performance as I think people think it is. It's no Tony.
As far as the other categories, makeup, hairstyling, VFX, I would put them in. I think now that makeup and hairstyling is 5 nominees instead of 3, I do think it probably gets in.
But she's just green.
All right, but that's enough. Especially if your lead character who's in acting contention is the one under the makeup, But
once again, she's just green. It's not like it's like super impressive makeup.
I go back to Joker. They got a costume design nomination for one costume. It can happen.
Did they get makeup over?
No, they didn't get makeup. I don't think they got makeup.
Well, if they got makeup, then I don't think this will get makeup.
If it got makeup, I swear to God.
If Joker got makeup, then maybe this. But I don't think when you've got like, what do I have in that category? You've got Dune, you've got Substance, you've got A Different Man, you've got
It got makeup. It got nominated for makeup.
It got makeup. Then maybe it
Case in point.
Okay.
I just think that if you have a Best Picture contender that can be checked off for a lot of these things, like Shape of Water, 13 nominations. I just think you have to consider it. And I know I'm referencing a lot of movies that won Best Picture, but I don't think it's out of the cards. I think that it's been 22 years since a musical won Best Picture. Wait, so what was that SAG Ensemble?
If it wins SAG Ensemble, I'll maybe consider it, but until then, I think it's got a 0% chance. I don't know what's winning.
SAG Ensemble, PGA. If it's the box office hit, we think.
If it makes a ton of money, then yes, maybe. But
it could win Golden Globe. It could win Golden Globe musical comedy.
It's not going to win
PGA. It could win SAG. I'm just telling you. Don't be surprised.
International Globe. I think what hurts this film is this is a domestic film. I don't think it carries it internationally as well as some of these other films. So, and the Academy is increasingly more.
I will grant you that. And it's
international people.
No, you go here.
Yeah, I just think internationally it won't have as much appeal, and the Academy is getting more international. So I think I'm going to keep comparing it to Barbie, in my opinion, right now. But we'll see.
I do think it's interesting because like Golden Globes, like they went with like Alma Poisty for Fallen Leaves as their 6th nomination. Yeah. So like it is interesting.
That's their taste.
What are the Globes right now compared to what the Globes would have been like a decade ago? If the Globes was a decade ago, I think Wicked slam dunk. I'm interested to see what happens with the Globes. But I also think like remember the Globes are the people in this new era in their kind of return that anointed Angela Bassett and said, yeah, this is a serious box office contender. So the idea that Cynthia Erivo couldn't win when they've proven themselves. Yeah, just because you're in one of the most popular movies of the year doesn't mean that we're not going to give you an awards in this era of the Golden Globes.
I just also think different film and performance, in my opinion, in terms of like the vibe and taste of the film. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I really do want to see how the two of them, how once people get over the shock of Ariana Grande, a serious actress, how
Mhm.
the nature of the conversation comes. Because I think that Cynthia Erivo will benefit long term from her performance in this. I think she will be the performance that ultimately people can't stop talking about. Just I think once
Yeah.
people can hear and see Defying Gravity, because that's the thing, Ariana Grande from the trailer, just because of her performance, like the acting, that was a surprise. But we haven't seen Wizard and I. We haven't seen Defying Gravity in any trailer. Once people are allowed to witness that, they're not going to stop talking about
Yeah. I think she's got a shot at a nomination. I don't think there's a
it.
world. I think this just wins costume and production design. I don't think it transcends because I don't think it will be taken seriously enough, broadly enough by the Academy. But we'll see. I guess the only thing we haven't really mentioned is VFX. I thought some of the visual effects wasn't great, so I don't think it could get that, but
Mhm.
I think it could sneak it in the fifth spot.
Yeah, I toy because like these are two movies that'll never be compared to again. But like The Irishman had wonky VFX, but because it was a Best Picture contender, I think it gets in. So I think
That
like
also had
that's
the de-aging.
yeah, that's a question. But I don't know. I think the VFX. It's I would be. I'd love to go through the movie. It's like what's VFX versus what's like just the production design that we assume is VFX because we're in
Well,
this
they-
day and age where nobody likes to build physical sets except apparently for Wicked. I
mhm.
don't know. I thought the flying monkeys I thought were just as impressive as
They were
Kingdom of the Planet
fine.
of the Apes.
Yeah.
And what were some of the other VFX moments? I mean, there's so many like invisible stuff. I feel like
The
just
bubble.
extension of sets and stuff. The bubble looks cool.
I just don't think it looks that good, visual effects wise. Like it's fine. That's how feel about the film in general. It's fine. It's fine. But
It's
I
fun.
don't something that the VFX branch will go for. But I don't know.
Mhm.
They've nominated films with worse visual. Like they
Hey,
nominated
they
Free
did Shang-Chi and Spider-Man in the same year, so you never
and
know.
Free Guy in that year too.
Yeah.
That was a
So
terrible
yeah.
film.
Well, it
They,
was also we were coming out of the pandemic. There weren't many blockbusters. That could have also been part of it.
yeah, I don't think it'll get that. But
Yeah.
yeah. So I've got pictures, supporting actors, costume design, sound.
And so you're predicting it for 5 categories, and you think it'll win 1 or 2.
It'll definitely win costume design. I think it'll probably win production design because I think Gladiator. I don't know what else would win, so I think it'll win too.
Okay. And then I'm.
Oh
All
God,
right. Do I
how
want to say this?
like double for this thing?
Well, okay. And let me. I want to actually. This is actually an interesting question because I think if Wicked isn't this, what do you think is the most nominated movie of the year?
Not Wicked,
Well, I
but
just said if not this, what do
definitely
you
not
think it
Wicked.
is?
Um, Probably The Brutalist or Dune. I think those could crack 10.
Dune could crack 10.
I don't think Wicked could crack 10.
What did Dune
I-
have the first time?
Dune had, I think, 9 the first time. So I think then you just add director and it'll get 10. So there
You're
you go.
still holding on. You're still holding on to
And Dune
Denis.
effects, yeah, as Jonathan says, not visual effects, but yeah.
I don't know. I gotta see. I want to see how the acting situation figures out. And I have an eye on screenplay because again, I don't know how that screenplay is going to be received yet. From the people I've talked to in WGA,
Not seriously.
they like they like the screenplay. They like Winnie Holtzman a lot. This is
But the
like a
writers branch has a very specific taste where I don't think they'll go for like Room Next Door or something else before they go for
good.
this. And
They could. Again, all eyes are on Amelia Perez. Amelia Perez
well,
and
that's not.
Wicked are
Yeah.
going for those 2 spots. So we'll see.
What films they are?
I
What
cannot believe, honestly,
family?
like again, that has shocked me how like polarizing it. I can't. That's a whole other conversation.
It sucks how all of the films with like the major like pop stan groups are like not great. So that's all. Well, for me, they're
Well,
great for,
yeah,
but
I don't think even like listen, I liked Amelia Perez a lot. I love Wicked. I was mixed on Joker, but you can't put all of those in the same category.
no,
One
all
of
of them.
them is going to be one of the biggest box office hits of the year. The other one is on Netflix, and the other one was one of the biggest flops of all time. Like, those are as far afield. Those are like the spectrum.
Is their pop fan base.
Oh my god.
So yeah, wait, you didn't how we can end it in a second, but because we're getting on an hour for Wicked review. But
Woo!
what's your total? You didn't say.
Oh, I don't know, because we didn't really talk about director, and I don't know. I
No.
don't know about director. Rob
They're
Marshall got in for Chicago,
competitive.
Damien Chazelle got in for La La Land, but we're in a new era of directors, so I don't know. I want to see how the movie comes out, because I do think like it could not be as big of a box office hit as we think. Moana 2 could come in and kind of
It depends
swipe
on
at it.
internet.
Yes, exactly. And so I want to see, like, because I also don't know. This is my big question. That's why I asked the question. I might not answer because I honestly don't know. Because I don't know if The Wizard of Oz is for the rest of the world what it is for us in America. And so I wonder if it's a Black Panther situation where this movie is like closer to like 50-50 box office rather than the usual 60-40 split between domestic gross and international gross, if not 70-30. It's once I see how this does internationally, then I can come back to you. But I definitely think all of the ones that you have on here, I think it could get nominated for easily.
Okay, so that's what, 9?
What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
No, that's
7,
8.
8.
That's 8. Yeah.
And then a lot of it, as far as the wins, like I'm not going to predict right now that it wins 2 acting awards, but I think it could win one of them, and I don't know which one it could win. That's where
it would win supporting actress if it won.
I think Zoe Saldana is a much stronger competitor than anybody is in Best Actress right now. I think everybody in Best Actress is kind of on an even level playing field, where at least Zoe Saldana is way out front. So that's also the tricky thing. Ariana Grande might be the easier win to imagine, but she's going up against the harder competitor. So again, I can't make a call right now.
There's precedence for her type of performance winning in that category. I don't see precedence for Cynthia's type and style of performance.
Well, I mean, you're going to tell me that there's never been a leading contender in a musical win Best Actress?
Different musicals. The musicals were franchise, wicked, blockbuster films. Yeah,
but when have we ever had a musical like that? You're saying we've never had this before. It's like, yeah, because this is the first time this has ever happened. Unless we're counting what? Teen Beach Movie, High School Musical. Your Precious Lemonade Mouth didn't get a sequel, so we can't use that.
I love them. But if those are the films we're comparing it to, then I don't think it will be.
Well, no, the idea of a live action musical sequel. I mean, I can't think of many examples, if any. What, Saturday Night Fever and Staying Alive?
Yeah, no. I don't know. At the end of the day, I think I'm repeating myself, but I do think for their more pretentious tastes, I don't think it'll be major outside of some tech categories. So, yeah.
I want to just one last question, because I think this is interesting, because we talk about the Academy's pretentious taste. Do you think the pretentious taste is what allowed Everything Everywhere to do so well? Was that pretentious taste? Because I don't think it is, and that's why I kind of object. Yeah, so that's why I think this and The Brutalist, I think, will benefit. I think those are the movies that are going to impact people the most on an emotional level, and then it's just a vibe of like, okay, what emotion are we going to tap into? But because I kind of reject the pretentious, the international stuff. If your movie pops in the way that I think this will, in a year where you have a lot of contenders that I think are struggling to connect and maintain the momentum because they're small movies at their core, I think this has a chance.
I disagree, but I think we're not going to convince each other either way.
No, so. Keeps it fun. If we agreed, this would have been such a boring episode.
It would, like at 15, but instead you got a discussion of Wicked, and it's all of that stuff. I want to remind you guys once again, the backlighting. What was happening?
Oh, stop.
What was happening? Hopefully.
You cried, so it did something right.
Yeah, but like I said, I cried during Shazam 2, and that was a terrible movie. So.
Yeah, well, this is better than Shazam 2. I'm here to tell you.
Yeah. Shazam 2 might have better lighting, but
please don't go there.
Probably not. But yeah, that is our review and Oscar predictions for Wicked. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy the film. So, subscribe. Happy Wicked Week.
Woo! Let us be glad. Let us be grateful. That's all. Okay, I'll do the whole thing. We need to stop.
Ended on a fittingly. I do not hate musicals. I love In the Heights. I love Hamilton.
So you like In the Heights more than this?
By a long shot. Yeah, I love it.
Interesting. I rewatched it 2 weeks ago, and it's good, but this has affected me on a molecular level.
You have more emotional connection, which is fair.
Oh God.
But yeah, those are our thoughts. Comment your thoughts when you guys see it down below on its Oscar chances, as well as your thoughts on the film in general. Subscribe, and stay tuned for more award season coverage. We're into the thick of it, guys. So you'll want to stick around. So goodbye.